So you are getting through this strange time quite well in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. I almost feel bad about how much I'm enjoying it.
Is it because you're in my research you're often described as the hardest working singer-songwriter in Ireland. So is it not, in a way, is it nice to have somewhat of a break of all that touring and kind of all that stuff that you have to do all the time?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to view it as work because it's so nice to do. I mean, I think it probably is a slowdown that I like. I guess, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm antisocial that this suits me well. I know that it suits my father very well. He loves this. No,
okay.
He doesn't have to feel obliged to meet anybody or anything like that. And I guess it's given me time to work on songs as well.
Right.
It's exactly the type of thing that songwriters and other creators, I guess, they force themselves into these types of scenarios. They self-quarantine by choice.
Right.
At times when they want to write albums. So this is like, it's like the world, or fate has chosen that you need to sit at home and finish all those half songs. So it's been good that way. I've written more songs this year than any other year I can remember.
Okay, and well, that's interesting then, because do you notice that they're heading a certain way, or can you kind of separate what's going on in the world at the moment from kind of seeping into the songwriting?
I don't think I can make good connections between it. Apart from one song, which was it seems to be directly inspired by.
Okay.
By the effect it had on the environment, the effect that quarantine has had on a kind of a slowdown of transport and slowdown of carbon emissions. And it would be great to learn good lessons from this time, but I'm not sure we will. I think the world might rush back in and people will revert.
It seems to be going that way, because just yesterday here in the Netherlands, we've had a lot of stuff, a lot of more stuff opening up. So it seems like, but then at the same time, it seems to be going well. So it's it's still uncertain what's going to happen. We're getting some of our freedoms back in a way. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But in terms of, well, you're saying you're quite creative, but then one thing that you also did is compile a new album to release. And when you did so, you went through, because it's a live album, a compile of songs that have been on your previous albums. Was it somewhat of going down memory lane in a way, going through these songs and selecting which ones to pick out? Or was it more or less? Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a different thing because we didn't select them from more than one gig. It's all one show.
Okay.
I understand why but I don't know how many shows we have recorded. I guess it would be, there would be issues, I guess, with the sound being different and different fidelity if you were to pluck recordings from different gigs. But all this one is all from one show last year here in Ireland, in Cork City, in a place called the Opera House. It was last September.
Right.
So, but it includes still most selection from most albums. So I don't know. I think there's 18 songs on it, maybe more, and they span across all the albums.
When you go think back of that particular gig, then what kind of thoughts and memories come up? Was that obviously it's a special moment for you because it's your hometown, I suppose. But what do you remember of that night?
I do remember kind of making a fool of myself in my talking between songs, and so that has made it onto the album. There's two tracks which are not really tracks. I guess they are just my failure to communicate to the audience this this kind of bit that I do. Do you sing as well? Do you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Oh, okay. Well, someone like me, I see it in other singer-songwriters too, because we might be shy, but we also feel the need to interact with the audience that is there in front of you. It's often you come up with kind of bits that work, stories that you can tell, you know where it's going, and you can be confident enough in it, and maybe you have a little joke arranged. So that's what I was trying to do, but I had completely messed it up timing wise at this particular gig, which had its own kind of charm, I guess, because it didn't sound as produced and show busy as it might have come across otherwise. So you can hear all my embarrassment and my awkwardness, and you can hear the band trying to tell me that it's okay, it's not so bad.
It's interesting that you say that, because for me, listening through the songs, and then I don't know if this is what you refer to. Oh, I have the wrong. But the Christy Skulls bits, and I don't know if this is what you're talking about. But
yeah.
To me, obviously, I suppose talking to some crowd is always a bit awkward, but it seems very, very warm, and then people seem to enjoy it. So that must be kind of an interesting interaction with the audience for you.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's nice. It's just kind of silly fun. And the audience is very supportive there, I guess, because it's a hometown thing that gets amplified. But I think the venue makes me nervous because it looks very formal there. It's an opera house, and it's, I don't know, the formality of it kind of jars with me. I guess I see myself as a bit rough or something like that.
Is that something, even though you say it's awkward, is that something you miss now that you can't have that direct connection with your audience?
I've missed it when I've been doing online gigs. It's one of the aspects that can be really nice, spontaneous requests for songs or just heckling that can be funny. Yeah, I don't know. But I would worry that if I missed it, would it be somehow connected to my need for attention and ego? So I don't really miss that so much. And I'm kind of grateful that I don't.
Well, but you raised something very interesting, which is something I've thought about myself quite a bit. And maybe you can shed some light on it. It's kind of this dichotomy, because on the one hand you have a lot of singer-songwriters who tend to be somewhat shy, who dislike the spotlight in a way, but there's still something that urges them on to go on that stage, even though they might not like it in particular, especially in the beginning. So what was that for you that kind of made you want to be on stage or want to share this music?
I'm not sure exactly. I described it before as like encouragement that I got from family and mainly family, to to telling me that I was able to do this, that I was able to play, and that the things I was writing were good. I remember, I can still remember my nervousness and kind of nausea at my first show of my own. You know, where I was the name on the poster and I had invited people along. Yeah, so there is some, like, friends of mine would say that I was just cynically trying to get the attention of women because I couldn't talk to them, which there might be some truth in that too.
Well, if we extend it then, because obviously you've been doing it now for quite a while, what is it that keeps you attached to it in such a degree? What does keep calling you back in a way? And then this can be just about songwriting as well.
Well, one strong element of it is the people that I play music with are great fun, and they're very good at it. And we have this kind of free arrangement where there's nothing really set in stone as to what everyone has to play. You know, people can just, within reason, play as they feel that night, you know. I miss the camaraderie of that. Some part, like, when there was a time when I was working construction as well as doing songwriting, and then there was a time where I thought, like, so my boss was very nice to me, construction. He said, you can take the days off that you need to go and do gigs or whatever. And then eventually I was taking so many days off that I was only working 1 day a week, and then sometimes none, and then maybe a stretch of 3 weeks without doing any construction. I was becoming more and more unreliable, and I was becoming more and more financially secure while just doing music. So that perpetuated itself, because as the bills arrived in, or as I had to pay rent, I knew that I had to do another gig that month. And then another thing came along where there was people involved that I was paying. I've always run a kind of a mercenary thing where I pay everyone for each hour of work they do, say.
Right.
Depending on the fee, like, you know, I try to keep it as socialist as I can. And that felt good to me then, that I was paying other people money to do what they love to do. That had a selfish kind of good feeling to it. Sorry. No, and I just wanted to perpetuate that too.
And then that is something that you're doing now with this record, and I saw you getting flattered about this in another interview as well. So I'm gonna not do that too much, but it's very kind of you to kind of help the people that have been kind of struck by this quarantine. So it's very kind of you. But then is this album in a sense also a showcase or an ode to the people that you play with and the people that you work with?
It feels like that to me, whilst I've listened to it, because there's a common kind of thing known in recording. The things that you can do live, they won't necessarily transpose into recording studio sessions. So a kind of a wildness and a dynamic and things like speeding up the tempo of a song and getting louder and louder, that's not available to you when you're doing studio recordings. It just doesn't read well to the listener. But in a live setting, and to a listener that knows they're listening to a live recording, it does seem to work. So you get to hear the musicians kind of go wild together. And that's like, there's a few instances on this album where the guitar player and all the, everyone together is having that kind of jam, that extended solo kind of feel. And I really like that it's been recorded, and like, it's cool to hear it and to feel the energy of them
Those genuine moments.
Yeah. You can say, oh, yeah, well, they were all right there in that moment, you know.
And then listening through the record, to me, obviously, I'm sure you have different connections with songs, but to me, Red to Blue was one that really shined in the live setting, I thought.
Yeah, that one works well. It's just kind of the nature of the melody, I guess. It has a kind of you can shout the whole song.
It starts to build, and then there's this almost, it's not gospel, but it kind of almost touches upon kind of some of the way those songs are structured in a way. So is there a song that sticks out for you, especially from that gig?
I like the end of a song called The Small Fire. And there's another... I like Red to Blue. I like the sound of... that the higher intensity songs seem to kind of... They sound better to me than we did when we recorded them. There's songs like One of the Good Ones and Get What You Give. They sound better to me. They sound more true to the song to me than the recordings do. Right.
Well, let's take one of those then, because one that stuck out for me is, as well as one of the good ones. So let's go back to its origins then. Do you remember kind of what the mindset or the feel was when you wrote that?
Yeah. It was a couple of things, I guess. It was a kind of a sense of how good are you? You think that you're moral, but you're kind of wrapped up in an immoral system, and it starts off with a kind of environmental things mixed in with what I'm doing for a living. You know, I drive a diesel van around the place to get to gigs and stuff like that. And, you know, that type of industry that I'm perpetuating, it keeps perpetuating the larger oil industry that is, you know, is not good for the world.
Sure.
And yet somehow I justify it to myself, and I tell myself that I do no harm because I'm just playing music to people who want to hear some music. But there's other stuff going on in the background. And then there's the second verse is to do with a kind of a modern slavery, where people turn a blind eye to the kind of, I guess, what would you call it? The derogatory term for it is a mail order bride.
Sure.
So I guess that's trafficking, I guess, is what that's referring to. And then the last verse is to do with inequality and poverty, and how we can turn a blind eye to people dying just because they're over there, they're far away, I can't see them. So it's like, you know, that's the song. Even the impetus to become better is nearly overwhelming, because there's so much wrong, and it kind of leads into this thing. It just keeps coming with all the ills of the world, especially if you're on social media these days. You see ills of the world compound, and everything you scroll past is another ill, and you cannot take it, so you shut off from it and you just deal only with yourself and the things that make you happy.
Yeah, and that's the line I wrote down. When I feel nothing, I'm happiest. So that's kind of shutting yourself off from all these feelings and emotions that you kind of get through seeing these ills in the world. And how much of yourself are in these songs? Because obviously songwriters at times take liberties, but you seem like someone who's very who writes very close to the heart. Is that right?
Yes, but I do kind of character.
Sure.
I kind of like to kind of following Tom Waits' kind of role. I try to inhabit characters, but you can only go so far outside yourself. Really, your own opinions of the world will always creep in. And even if you evoke someone else's opinion because it's your voice, there always seems to be kind of a judgment inherent in it.
Mm.
So I choose the opinion that I want this character to speak, and I choose it in such a way that the person knows this is not what I believe.
Mm.
Yeah, so there's always you can't escape yourself, it seems.
Sure, and especially I think, and this is true for I suppose most albums, but especially on your latest album, self-titled album, it was somewhat of a self-exploration, right? In kind of figuring out what this thing that life is, all about, this thing we call life is. When you do these kind of, I mean, they can be character studies or more close to yourself, but do they help you make sense of the world?
I think they do, but I'm not sure because I don't know how coherent I am or how consistent I am in my thinking. And I swing from one opinion to the next, and I see this point of view, and then I see that point of view, and then I don't know where the line is. I don't know where the path is. You know. One kind of one thing that has kind of kept me thinking is the absence of free will, and kind of the study of the ego and the kind of narratives that we tell ourselves, and I've tried to explore that, like just the nature of what consciousness is. So I've tried to kind of put that type of a theme into a lot of the songs that I've written recently. There's a kind of an element of trying to escape the feeling of you or I or me, and that it's that feeling is the cause of a lot of suffering. But then at the same token, the you or the I and its reputation is the only thing that can make the world better, really.
Sure.
If you lose complete interest in what the you does, then there's no moral progress.
Right, I get what you're saying, because there's this one guy I like to listen to his lectures. He's called Alan Watts, and he's this Buddhist. So I like to listen to his talks, and it's very I like it, but at the same time there's a sense of, well, does that mean if there is no absolute meaning or whatever, it kind of becomes pointless in a way, or if you go too far in that kind of Buddhist direction, then you're just sitting on a tree ignoring all the else around you. So that's a very interesting thought. When you I don't think you do, but when you write these types of songs, because they're especially the lyrics, it's not necessarily easy listening. You have to pay attention in a way. So do you want people to take something away from your songs, or is that do you leave that open to them?
I think that I need to work on that a little bit. I've been told that I'm not very easily understood, and that not all the words can be heard properly, because I do want people to. I do spend a lot of time on the words, and I guess I have a sense of pride about them. So I do want them to be heard. And there's a kind of. But at the same time, I kind of subvert that by trying to make things sound as rhymey and as structured as possible, so that they're enjoyable to both people who care about what the lyrics mean and people who don't. I have a couple of friends. It baffles me how little they understand about what the lyrics of the song is, because it doesn't matter to them. They're only listening to the rhythm and the melody, which is probably maybe a more philosophical way to enjoy music, because you're not interested in what some one human thinks is a good opinion. And so, but I mean, I guess I am that egoic that I think my opinion is worth hearing.
No, but I get that. I think it's partly due to what your musical diet is, so to say, because like you, I delved into people like Bob Dylan and Neil Young and Bruce Springsteen and those kinds of narrative style writers, and then you do pay attention to the lyrics, and lyrics become important to me. So when I listen to a pop song these days, it doesn't do much to me because I've listened to these people tell these amazing stories. But I can imagine that if you're somebody who likes to dance, which I'm not, then you have a different perspective on certain songs.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some of my friends, they just see music as a medium to get excited. And I don't know if I get excited by much.
Well, but the thing is, you in the show, you after doing those Christy Skulls things, you say, you kind of jokingly say, "Well, back to the misery again," or something along those lines. But and then I've talked with a lot of songwriters about this. But what makes kind of the darker side of life, or what makes that more compelling in a way than the happy side?
Well, I guess it's a problem, isn't it? It's like anything that is good, or anything that anything that you see as going well in life, it kind of doesn't need any fixing. It doesn't need much attention. It's the other stuff, the stuff that's getting in the way of yours or someone else's happiness. That's the stuff that causes people to reflect and be affected, I guess. So you're just toying with people's emotions.
Who were, obviously I mentioned a couple of names just now that you were, I think, inspired by or at some point in your life. Who is some maybe a song or an album that you've heard recently that had a similar effect on you, that kind of got to your core in a way?
Leonard Cohen's
Okay.
Thanks for the Dance, to his posthumous album. There's a kind of a mix of the fact that he's speaking to you from the dead, and he's also got a lot of themes which kind of resonate with me because they're anti-ego and anti-self. That's what it sounds like to me anyway. He's got a line in one of the songs. There's a couplet at the end of the verses. He says, "Who's moving on?" As in, I think, who's leaving or who's dying? Who's moving on? Who's kidding who? And he's trying to say, there's no you and there's no me. There's just this mess, whatever the fuck it is. And I don't know, there's something beautiful, but something kind of very sad about it as well. That I don't know. I like to hear him speak about that type of stuff.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was finished.
Is that something you do? I don't want to call it research in a way because it's just kind of doing regular stuff. But do you read a lot of like, say, philosophy or poetry and that kind of stuff to kind of fine tune maybe your writing or bring up new ideas?
I should do more. I don't do as much as I should. But I read. Well, I listen to books nowadays while I'm driving or while I'm doing my timber stuff. I've listened to a couple of books on the evolution of the brain and the evolutionary psychology and the conscious versus the unconscious brain, and studies on the way people behave. Yeah, a lot of these writers are fairly convinced that there is no such thing as free will, and that people are not making their choices. They're only telling themselves a kind of a PR campaign after the fact. I did that because this, kind of an afterthought of your own.
Almost like a justification, finding a justification for why you acted the way you did.
Yeah. So those things that they play on my mind a lot, and I guess one good aspect of that I feel is good, is that it takes away a lot of the complicity or the blame for how people behave, and that they're not their own fault. I mean, it's not. You wouldn't wish to be someone who behaves in a way that you find, like, even if society finds it abhorrent, you would hate to be living in that consciousness.
Sure.
And you find ways to forgive people quicker, and you find ways to forgive yourself a bit quicker. Leonard Cohen describes it as a kind of an overlooking. You just overlook it all and not make too much harsh judgment on these apes.
Those are it's all interesting stuff. The one thing I know, this is probably nonsense, but the one thing I remember in terms of determinism is that I think it was Sartre who had something about this. As long as you have the choice of suicide, then there's always free will, or something like that. But I'm probably misremembering that. But you mentioned consciousness and kind of subconsciousness, and what I always find interesting, especially by making music, is when you're on stage, how conscious are you of kind of what's going on? Is it a very structural? Are you very aware of what you're doing? Like, I'm playing this note, now I'm playing this note, or is it almost like a haze and you walk off stage not remembering much?
At times, during like, it would always coincide with the better gigs or the better performances that you would kind of enter a kind of a non-existence or a state of flow, as they call it. And you may not remember much of it, but you would feel kind of captivated by the music that's going on around you. And for me, because I'm singing, and the songs are almost like muscle memory, that I can kind of disappear a little bit into them. I don't do a lot of technical playing, so that I'm playing mostly rhythm parts that can make me free to kind of disappear in my brain a bit. So that is a nice element of it.
When you drift off like that, do you drift into kind of the emotions of the song and what that particular song is about, and where what memories they conjure up in your mind?
I don't know. I think I've experienced it before that if something has bothered me in the past, in the recent time of that gig, and say that day something has bothered me, I'll repurpose a song, and the anger of that song will now be directed towards this event. So it's like a new narrative. So, like, depending on what the song is about, it could still be about that thing. If the song is about someone that you are grieving for, and you're genuinely singing it, and you're thinking of the meaning of the words, then that song will usually attach itself to the same person you're grieving for. But love songs often jump from, to more recent things. The person or scenario they may have been written about is not always what you're thinking about when you sing the words years later.
Right. And in terms of the kind of songs evolving and taking on different meanings, then I suppose Wasteland is quite an interesting song, especially in light of what's going on in the world.
That one takes on different things. All right. But that one was a kind of a free will study too.
Right.
That the killer and the brother are the same thing. Yeah, it had a little bit of a. I forget which one is which philosopher kind of maintained that nature was bad and that society fixed it.
I don't know if this is what you mean, but Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he kind of came up with the social contract theory.
Yeah, I think that's the second.
Or maybe
verse
it was somebody else.
Yeah, it is. It's Hobbs versus Rousseau, but I always forget which one is which. I always forget which one.
I think Hobbes believed in kind of the state of nature being a war of everybody against everybody, and then Rousseau talked about people putting fences down and kind of demarcating, well, this is now mine, and he talked about how society kind of started out of that idea of, but I might be mistaken, it's been a long time, so.
Well, yeah, whichever. In my brain, it was like it was framed as the nature versus nurture. That one of those. I'm so ignorant. One of those. I'm going to guess. I'm going to say that it was Hobbes that would say that the baby is born good, and that society makes it bad, whereas the other would say the baby is born bad, and the society nurtures it into not being a murderous, rapacious monster. So this, I guess the second verse of that Wasteland song is of the first one. It's like you're born an animal and you're competitive and you're looking out for yourself first, and your own survival and even your own procreation. So I guess that's what that song, it's not always the way I think.
No, but in terms of kind of these very difficult subjects that you talk about, and then I'm sure that the more you find out about them, the more questions they raise. So what is your opinion on free will at this moment?
I don't see any evidence for it in the kind of abstract sense. I see loads of evidence for it as I speak.
Sure.
As I use the word I have I've had various experiences, some through kind of meditation and some through drugs, which have kind of taken me away from my own ego, and kind of glimpses of just bare consciousness without any sense of self, nothing connected to my sense of having a body, or that my consciousness is inside my head, behind my eyes.
I don't really think there's an answer to that question though, but it's interesting to kind of think about it.
Yeah, if you were born and you had no choice, you had no choice of your parents. You did not make yourself, and your parents did not make themselves. So that you're an arrangement of genes and atoms. And that arrangement makes up a kind of a machine, or an organic machine at least. And that machine is kind of blown around in this environment that it had no part in creating either. Then I just don't know where the self comes into it. As in, what authoring do you have at all? You did not author your body.
Sure.
And you did not author the environment. So Hobbs and Rousseau can both fuck off.
Fair enough. Well, kind of to round off and getting back to the music, what is kind of your picture for the next couple of months? Because we're still in this weird situation. I think culture and especially live gigs will be one of the last things to be allowed again, especially in kind of larger numbers. So where are you? Are you fine still, and are you looking forward to getting back on stage?
I am looking forward to getting back to gigs. All right. I have a friend that works as a stonemason who's willing to give me a couple of days a week. If that needs to be the case, that might be nice for a while. But I've written a good few songs that I like, and that tends to keep me happy for a while. It buoys me up. I get a little bit worried or anxious if I spend a period of 6-7 months having not written a song. It seems like a very strange thing to attach happiness to. But I guess I worry that that my creativity is fading, that I'm no longer able to kind of play around with things the way I used to be able to.
It's interesting that you say that, because is that kind of because I hear that a lot from artists, and is that kind of the curse of the artist as well, that you always wonder if you can still do it, and you always wonder, well, can I I've had some successes with this, can I repeat that? It's a very, you have to be in a way, I suppose, vulnerable to a certain extent if you are an artist and you're presenting your work to be judged.
Yeah. Vulnerable is a good word to use. Because I think there has to be something that you are responding to. If you're like, you could be vulnerable financially, and you could be angry about that because you feel as though you ought not to be, like, it's the fault of the society that you live in that forces you to be so down and out. Or that you're vulnerable emotionally because you're young and you don't know what love is, and you don't know who you are and who you want. And so you have that kind of wall to kick against. And I guess, when you get older, you worry that you're becoming less passionate about things too. Or even if you are passionate, that you won't be listened to, because it's not common to hear people in their 40s or 50s railing at the world and shouting. A lot of the time people have calmed down, maybe somehow found a home and a mortgage and a family to care about more than they do themselves. Yeah, I guess it's all a sense of balance, I guess. I don't know.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's what this whole life is trying one big balancing act, and because there's so many inputs in a way that you get every day, and then there's so much you can do, and you can never do everything. So you have to balance kind of your morality, your work ethic, your sense of enjoyment and play to kind of still keep that element of yourself alive. So it's a love, obviously. So it's one big balancing act, I would say. But Mick, I want to thank you very much for your time. It's very interesting. I don't know if I made a lot of sense because, I don't remember a lot. I did take some philosophy classes, but it's been a while ago. So, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It was lovely to talk to you.
All right. Thanks. I hope you get to enjoy the sun a little bit today.
Thank you, Urban. You too.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.